Hey, everybody! Welcome to Booked for Friday! I am your host, Julie DeFisher, with our other lovely host, Dix!
That'd be me. Welcome in, everybody. Today we have an amazing author with us, Russ Colchamiro, coming to us to talk about Blood Force Rising. Russ has very graciously offered to be in the hot seat as we're having a special solo interview tonight. So we're going to get some wild questions as per usual. Make sure to throw your questions into chat so ask Russ all the things you guys are burning to know. How's everybody's Friday? How's everybody's weekend? Plans for the weekend coming up?
I'm taking my son to see the Odyssey tomorrow.
I've heard it seems to be a very polarizing movie, and as like a history and mythology buff, I'm very hesitant. I want to see it, but
As somebody who had to drone through that book in both junior and senior English, I'm not sure if I want to see it, but period pieces like that do kind of draw me in. So, but I've heard mixed things about both sides of it. I've had people that said that they absolutely loved it, and people that said that they made a mockery of it. So, but they said they made a mockery of Spartacus. So I'm like,
if you haven't already seen it, I highly recommend checking out Epic the Musical on YouTube. It is the story of the Odyssey done in musical format, and there are like animations people did to it. But we're getting way off topic. So, Russ, go ahead and anything you want to tell our viewers about yourself before we start with the crazy questions. I know you sent us your blurb, but we generally don't read those out on stream. Those go in the newsletter. So,
Well, first of all, Sticks, I love what you've done with the place.
thank you. I'm still renovating.
Well, you know what? About 4 years ago, my basement looked like yours because I had a massive flood down here. I had to rebuild the whole space.
That's what happened to mine. I'm
Yep.
I'm 3 years into remodeling this basement, and this is where I'm currently at.
Been there, done that. So about me. So I'm Russ Colchamiro. I've been an active author for 20. I've been on book tour for 20 something years. Between myself, solo projects, and collaborations, I've got 35 or 40 books out, combination of novels, novellas, and short stories. I primarily write sci-fi thrillers, pulpy spy thrillers, action, mystery, crime, and some horror. I'm a member of Crazy 8 Press. We're an author collective. A bunch of New York Times best-selling authors. Peter David, who recently passed away, he wrote a lot of the Hulk comics that you saw. And I host my own podcast, Russ's Rock and Roller Coaster, which has been out for about 6 years. I'm taking a hiatus for the fall, but I'll be back in February of 2027. You can find it on YouTube. All the episodes are free. It's about 150 there. Let's see, what else can I tell you? And for the last, although I've taken a break in the last year or two to do some more horror-based stuff. I've been writing I've done 5 novels in the Angela Hardwick series. Now, Angela Hardwick is a hard-boiled intergalactic private eye. Think of her as part Blade Runner, part Doctor Who, and part John Wick. And she takes on the kind of cases that you think a private eye would take: missing persons, kidnapping, arson, extortion, murder. But she also takes on cases that deal with time travel, parallel universes, alien uprising, androids, clones, a miles long helix of the universe's DNA, and so on and so forth. And the 4th book in the series, Blunt Force Rising, I think is the one that you wanted to talk about tonight.
That is the one we have displayed on the screen right now. So
see, now you just ended up on my TBR. Like it wasn't long enough.
yeah, just based on the description of Angela there, I'm getting very much. I was like, oh, that sounds like somebody that Julie is writing about. But it's also, I also thought of our new friend Ray Tracer, who is the authors in that there. But well, again, we're not here to talk about that stuff. Um, you're quite the Renaissance man then, between podcasts and author groups and the amount of books you put out across varying genres. So it's always good to see somebody with such a wide breadth of work and experience.
Yeah, it's been a minute. It's been a minute. I just wrapped up a really big book tour for the summer. Logged a lot of miles. I was where the hell was I? I was in Edison. I'm right now. I'm in the Northeast. I'm in New Jersey. I was in Edison, New Jersey, and I was in Pittsburgh, and then I was in Altoona, Pennsylvania, and then I was in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I'll be in Brooklyn in September. I'll be in Oaks, Pennsylvania in November, and I think that might be it for this year. But who knows? Things are always popping up, so you never know.
That's usually what we cover at the end of the show, so we'll circle back to that, give you time to think about anything else. But we'll go ahead and dive into some of our crazy questions. Make sure you get them in the chat, guys and gals, and everything in between. We know that you guys have some questions. Uh, but Julie, you want to kick us off with the first question of the night?
Yes, and and it is the question that I normally lead off with. So I'm just gonna go ahead and just dive into my regular question.
Diving right in.
What have you had to research that probably has you on an FBI watch
Well, particularly since I've been writing hardware for the last 6, 7 years, and I've got more stuff coming. So I've spent a lot of time. I've actually I've interviewed many members of the FBI, DEA, police force, and several private investigators. Since she is one, because I wanted to get a real sense of what that life is really like. And so I've had multiple conversations, and I've spoken with a former warden who was hired by Schwarzenegger back when he was governor, and I've actually spoken to some inmates about their time in prison. Although I will say I did have a short stint behind bars, but that's another story for another day. Uh, so I like to have an authentic feel, and sometimes you have to sort of graze. I actually spoke to a prison guard, so I like to get touches from various levels of law enforcement on both sides, just to kind of see on all sides to kind of see what's what.
For TOS
Very
purposes, we'll
interesting.
just say it was something fancy, white collar, like tax evasion or something. But
Well, you could say that. You'd be wrong, but you could
hey,
say it.
yeah. Uh, all right. Um, I'm curious to know if you could erase one book from your memory just so you could experience it for the first time again. What would it be?
Fahrenheit 451.
That seems to be a popular one that's the answer.
Yep. That's the one book. That's the first book that I ever remember that really like burned a hole right into my soul. I've never forgotten it. When people ask me, what are some of the most influential books in my lifetime, that is absolutely one of them. I haven't read it in a while. I'm actually due for a reread. I've probably read it, I don't know, 2, 3 times in my life, but that is a book that I would like to just sort of, if I could just start from going cold and knew nothing about it and start it over, that would probably be it.
Very, very interesting. Okay. My second most popular question. Um, Assuming that your characters know anything about vehicles. Now I have to put that because we've had so many people are like, well, they don't know what cars are, and I'm like, okay. Assuming your characters know what vehicles are, whatever that vehicle may be, who are you trusting with your keys, and who are you putting them in the freezer praying they don't find them?
Are you talking specifically within the Hardwick universe or in any characters?
Any of your books, any of your characters, who are you trusting with your keys, and who are you hiding them in the freezer?
If it makes it easier to narrow it down to one book, we'll stick with the one we've got displayed there, Blood Force
All right.
Rising.
So in Hardwick's universe, she has her friend Esteban, who she calls Benny. He's actually a cab driver. And he sort of he helps her out. He kind of like chauffeurs her around from time to time, but he's pretty quick on his feet if he had to. So if I needed anyone behind the wheel, it would be Benny. Now, who would I hide the keys from in that universe? Who would I not want? Who would I want to hide? Oh, all right. So Dolores. So Dolores is this kind of like very big hulking woman who is she's a baggage handler at a galactic cruise port, but she's also an investor of various kinds. She knows a lot of people, but God, does she have a temper? I don't know. I don't really know that I want her. Like if I was in trouble, I would want her like yanking me out of a burning building. But I don't think I'd want her
You don't
like
want her behind the wheel of your car.
no, I don't think so.
I just got a mental image of like trying to stuff Shaq into like a Fiat.
Yeah, yeah. She's not quite that big, but big enough where she's got a temper, and I don't really want someone with a temper behind the wheel.
Oh, and
Fair.
you keep forgetting the third part of that question that Kesh wants you to add, Julie. Who
Which
are
is
you
Oh
shoving in the
no,
trunk?
because I use that as the second part later. Is who would you and who's getting shut in the trunk? Uh,
oh, that's easy. That's going to be Whistler. That's Hardwick's protege, who especially in the first couple of books, because in the first couple of books he's young. So Hardwick is, when we meet Hardwick, she's early mid 30s, and she's been at this already for a dozen years or so. Now Whistler is about 10 years her junior, and he's very cocky and he's young, and he's put me in, coach. I'll do anything. I'll dumpster dive for evidence. I'll stay up for 4 days straight doing research, but he kind of wants a seat at the table and he wants to be treated like a big boy, but he really hasn't earned his place there yet. So he's the kind of guy who, like, he kind of needs to be put in his place a little bit sometimes, to be reminded that this isn't private eye camp. This is like private galactic private eye work. This is like no joke. You're not following someone home to see if they, if they're faking a back injury to get workers comp. I mean, this is like very dangerous, like folds in time and space and dimension kind of work. So if you're not up for this, and most people are not, you need to be quiet when it's your turn to be quiet, which he doesn't usually do. So he needs to be. If anyone needed to be put in the trunk, it would. I don't know if he needed to be, but I think Hardwick would actually do it. She would put him in the trunk.
I'll get to my question in a minute. Something about that, quite your answer to who you would trust with your keys. I've noticed a theme across all of these interviews, and it seems like, regardless of the genre, every main character has two things in common. One, money is a superpower, so they like. I don't ever hear about broke main characters. And two, like they all have a friend or a personal like a professional driver in their circle.
Yeah, Hardwick is one of those. She's good at what she's good at, but um she collects friends. Did you ever read? Are you a comics guy? You read comics? Are you ever read Hellblazer?
No, I haven't read that one.
Okay, so it won't translate as much, but for those who have, um, Benny is slightly based off of a character called Chaz, who is sort of John Constantine's. He's kind of like a dark magic kind of guy.
You said Constantine, and when you mentioned Whistler, I was just imagining. I can't remember the character's name, but Shia LaBeouf's character in the movie, at least.
So that's it. That's Chaz.
Oh, that's
that's
Chaz. Oh,
Chad.
yeah, 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 yeah,
That's
yeah,
Chad.
yeah. No,
Okay, except the character in the comics is better, but nevertheless, Whistler he's very loosely based on that model. But I mean, I'm sorry, not Whistler. So Benny, who is kind of the cab driver, is very loosely based on very loosely based on that dynamic.
gotcha.
Yep.
All right. So, what do you want people to feel the moment that they close your book? Like they've just finished it, they've just set it down or turned off their screen, however they're consuming it. What is the first thing you want them to kind of like to hit them?
So you're talking about Blunt Force Rising or any book that I do?
This one would just, I think, would just apply across like you as a writer. Like, what are you trying to? I
So
know
I think
every
it'll.
story's different.
So I mean, I don't know if you guys if you guys see the cover up on the screen,
Mm-hmm.
but anyway. So let me just give you the setups so it'll understand. So in this one, Hardwick and Whistler are providing private security on a galactic cruise ship at a time when androids have recently been granted rights. But just because they have rights on paper doesn't mean that everyone's okay with it. Well, on this ship, for reasons I will not explain, a murder takes place, and it sets off a chain reaction of events, and a few things happen. One, all communication is knocked out. Two, engines are failing, are knocked out. Three, life support is failing. Now, you are literally a million miles from anywhere. You cannot escape. You cannot call for help. And for reasons I'll also not explain, essentially a zombie apocalypse with a mixture of humans and androids have kicked off where it's a lethal, bloody scrum where either you're going to make it to the end or you are not. Think of it as like Die Hard in space with a zombie apocalypse. And that's kind of the setup. So this is a balls to the wall, ripping, bloody action thriller in space. So when this book is over, I want readers to walk away and go, holy crap, that was fucking insane. Wow. That's what I want them to walk away. That's what I hope they walk away with.
I'm getting like a. The more I'm hearing about this book specifically, I'm getting like a very like sci-fi Ghost Ship, the movie Ghost Ship, like a sci-fi version plus like murder mystery.
Kind of.
Well,
Not
I'm
so,
feeling very like
not so
I
close.
Robot mixed
Sort
with
of. Yeah.
with Alita
Okay.
and throw in a little World War Z.
Okay.
Hard to.
That's not entirely that's fair. And
Hard to pin it down.
so what I do is, and the way I wrote the series is that each novel is a standalone thriller where I reintroduce the world building and the characters. So every time out, so you can start with any book, and essentially it's book one. I did that on purpose, so I didn't want readers to feel like, oh, I have to commit to this whole series. You don't. There's 5 novels in the series. You can literally start anywhere. You can read them in any order, or you can be one and done. However, there is some character development. So if you're a purist, you would start at the beginning at book one. Blunt Force Rising is book 4, but you can start with book 4 and you know exactly where you are. But in between all the action thriller, there's a lot of character moments in here too, and that's kind of I do this intentionally. Is that I want every book in the series has a mixture of it's got the mystery, it's got that noir, it's got the pulpy action thriller, but it's got a heartbeat too. Because if you don't care about the characters, all right, it's a bunch of stuff that happens and it's cool, but I don't. I'm looking for more than that. There's depth to every book, and I explore a lot of themes in here that are important to me. And there's a lot of twists, a lot of turns as always. So in with the I think the action is heightened because you're invested in the characters. And when this book is over, the characters in Hardwick's world are really they're never going to be the same. Not after this one. And also, what I do is thematically in every book, in a lot of series, when there's, any kind of like crime based series, a lot of them are more or less, each book is more or less the same. It has a certain formula to it. And there's nothing wrong with that. God bless anyone who does that. I'm not knocking this in any way. But for me as an author, I don't write that way because it would bore me. I need to do something different in every book. So with this one, I actually originally intended it to be sort of like an Agatha Christie, and then there were none kind of book, right? Where it's a real closed room and people get knocked off one by one. But as I was getting into this, I'm like, this is really, really hard to do. This is much more complicated than I thought it was going to be. And I really thought about it and I said, well, what kind of story am I really telling? And I realized that kind of a story, while fascinating, it's not the story I really wanted to tell. I really wanted to sort of like condensed pressure cooker kind of an action thriller, where you're really trapped. You just can't leave, and it really comes down. And it came into those elements really kind of got really heightened and sort of like if you think about it, like in Die Hard, right? He goes through the building and he winds up hitting like after a while he starts remembering where he is and he starts getting the lay of the land. But at the beginning, he's all confused and fucked up, and he goes, "Oh, okay, now I know where things are." And I wanted that within this book. And whereas the other books are mostly a combination of street level and more galactic elements. This one is essentially, except for the very beginning, the entire novel takes place on this ship, and that's it. It's one location, and it's a cruise ship. So it's essentially it's like it's a hotel in space, right? So there's only so you have those interior spaces you start to get familiar with, but I wanted that sense of claustrophobia as well.
Okay. Now I'm claustrophobic. It's like, no. Uh, okay, we got a question from the audience. Which of your characters, any of the series or non-series, uh, would you trust with your credit card?
My credit card. Okay. In this series, let's see. Whistler, no. Hardwick, probably. All right. So there's a character, Nina. Uh, she's a nurse, and she's an ER nurse, and when she's in the ER, she's a little thing. She's barely 5 feet tall, but she is tough as nails. Like she's the one who comes, like she's the one that you put your faith in her hands. But when she's home, she's all very glam, and she likes nice things. But she's very like on her shit, and she's within Hardwick's world. She's probably the most, let's say, consistently responsible, and she's kind of a more serious person. So I would trust her.
Seem to be developing this theme and questions of like characters committing identity theft. Take your car, take your credit card, take your social security number. Um, Let me ask. This is about your characters, but not about them taking your things. Can you tell us about the most like abrupt departure from the plan? Which character took the hardest left turn on you?
Huh, that's an interesting question. The hardest left turn. Hmm.
You were just like, you know, you
Wow.
knew where things were going, and then all of a sudden the characters was like, I'm gonna do this.
Actually, it's Hardwick herself because it was actually where she came from. So I wrote a series, my first series. I'm dating myself, almost 20 years ago. There's 3 books in this series: Finders Keepers, Genius de Milo, and uh, Astropalooza. It's like a sci-fi backpacking comedy. Think of it more of like Bill and Ted meets Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
I like that
And in the
concept.
second book, Hardwick gets mentioned by another character. It was like blink and you miss her. She showed up for a teeny fraction of one chapter, and that was it. And she really had no significance to that second book. But as soon as I introduced her, I said, "That's interesting," because I've always loved Private Eyes as characters. I've always loved mystery and crime, and I've always loved sci-fi. And for the longest time, I wanted to write a Private Eye character, and maybe it was just like my inner self shouting, like it just sort of knew. And I said, "All right, what's up with her?" So I said, "That's interesting." So in the third book, I bumped her up to a pretty significant secondary character because I wanted it served a very real purpose in the story, even though that series is more comedic and it's more fun and comedic. Her character was more serious. She's this intergalactic private eye, and I thought, I think I really like her. So then I thought, well, I think I want to write a series with her, but I don't know if I'm really if there's enough there, or if I just like the idea. So then I did as part of Crazy Eight Press, we do a bunch of anthologies, and it was my turn at bat to run one, and we did a book called Love, Murder, and Mayhem, and it was all sci-fi themed. It was private eyes, AI, time travel, superhero, supervillains, and so on and so forth. But the reason that I even did this book is I wanted a platform for Hardwick, and I gave her a standalone short story, and I just wanted to get a feel because I wrote that one from Hardwick is always first person point of view. So I did one. It was about, I don't know, 7,000 words. And I thought, okay, she's my girl.
There's something
And from
here.
that, And then from then on, I said, all right, now I'm going to give this a go and write a novel. And then I wrote one. And once I did the first one, which is Crackle and Fire, I said, all right, I got this. And ever since then, it's really taken off. And I've done 5 novels in the series so far. I consider it series 1. I'll do at least another 5, which will be series 2. And I've got some other side projects with her. But when I started, when she first showed up, I had no overt plan that I was going to basically launch an entire franchise with her. And yet I've written 5 novels, 6 short stories with her, and a novella project that I'm developing. And then like I said, I've got at least 6 or 7 other novels just in concept. And then there could be, my intention is that I'll write her indefinitely, but we'll see. So yeah, she was, so in terms of like taking a hard turn, I didn't start out with this plan. She showed up and she basically demanded that, oh, we're in it. She's yeah, she's just
I want to say straight up that that answer is very validating right now because I have a character in one of my books. It was a mention. She's not even in it. It was a name. And
yep.
before I know it, she's got her own damn book. Uh, so thank you. I feel very validated with that answer.
Well, I specifically came on the show to validate you.
So now we're here to validate you, not the other way around. But I'm appreciating it.
Out of
Okay. So do you have a particular uh ritual, so to speak, before you sit down to do your massive writing?
No,
Like, is there something that you absolutely have to do?
I mean, there's no, like, I don't have a ritual per se. When I, are you talking about to write anything or because writing a
Like
novel?
when you sit down for a project and you've got it in your head, you know you've got to bust out like 20,000 words.
I
Is
mean,
there something that you have to do first? Is there like a specific drink? You have to have snacks. You have to have like complete quiet. Like,
all right. So when I write, when I'm in here downstairs clacking the keys, doors closed, I need absolute silence. I don't, no noise, no music playing, nothing. Um, I do a lot of prep. I'll I kick around the idea for a while in my head. Usually the way it starts is I have an idea and then I kick it around in my head. And my rule is if I can't hold on to an idea 3 times by itself and retain it, I probably don't have it. If it's there at least 3 times, I go, okay, this seems real to me. And then I just noodle around in my head. I walk around. I'm very, I mean, you probably see, I'm very physically active. I exercise a lot. I play pickleball and play music, as you can see, and that physicality gets me going. And I noodle ideas in my head, and then I start taking notes, and then I put them in a file. And you know how it goes. You send text to yourself, you take notes, you email stuff, and then I start kind of doing a loose outline, and then I start building it a little bit more consistently. And I usually have a pretty solid outline when I start by the time I actually formally like clack the keys. But in terms of specific just rituals other than quiet, no, not really.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to break the quiet now. What is the theme song for your current work in progress?
Theme song for my current. Well, I literally just finished my next book. It's a so I'll
Okay, well
I don't
then
know if
what would be the theme song for that one, the just completed
you
one?
for that one. That's a good question because that one that's a again it's an action thriller, but this one is this is a vampire story, more of like a supernatural or Buffy kind of thing. Huh? I don't know. That's interesting. I'd really have to think about that. I don't know. I didn't really have one in mind when I was writing it. Um,
That usually leads into another question: is do you make playlists for your stories? I know some authors do, but it doesn't sound like it.
not usually. No. Although when I was writing this one, so Crossline, which is a this is space opera. That's more of like a blend of like call it Flash Gordon meets Interstellar. I probably listened to Dark Side of the Moon 50 or 60 times when I was playing, because there were certain scenes where I just kind of wanted that tone in my head, because it helped with some world building. But usually when I'm writing, no, although I will say, and I'm actually trying to sell it now. I wrote a horror novel. It's a college campus set, uh, kind of like murder thriller, with a supernatural component, and it's set in the very late. It's like late '80s, just creeping up around '89, 1990, and there's a lot of music that I sort of just that I'll talk about that's like playing within the playlist. There's a character who's a college campus radio DJ, and she's playing a lot of that late '80s, early '90s, alt music, alternative rock before it really became a thing. Like XTC and the Cocteau Twins and the Lemonheads and that kind of thing. So that was probably pretty consistent throughout that book.
Kidding. Yeah, those were all like right. I mean, I can't say before my time because you mentioned my birth year in there, but I was too young to be listening to remembering it.
Oh, don't be, as I say, don't be fooled by my boyish good looks. I'm probably older than you. I'm probably older than you think I am.
What do you got, Julie?
Okay.
We got one in chat. If you don't have one or I'll ask it next.
Where is the weirdest place that you've ever had inspiration strike?
Weirdest place I've ever had inspiration strike. Weird. Well, my life has been pretty weird. Okay, well, I sort of loosely alluded to it before, and it's coming up in this book. I won't go into the details of. Well, actually, two. All right, you know what? I'll tell you exactly. It was the night. It was a night that I held a dead body in my arms.
I feel like that would have that would have been a good answer. Well, I guess not because you didn't read that to end up on a watch list. Okay.
You asked.
Yeah. No. That's a great answer. We'll get to some of these chat questions. Keep them coming, guys. Ace from chat asks, "Are you okay with writing scenes with characters solo?" Excuse me. Or do you try to pair up your characters for dialogue?
Both. One of my favorite things to do, it's just stylistically, when I write, is that when I have characters together, I really think of it as a play. And what I like is I like to get usually not more than two or three, because otherwise, logistically, it gets very complicated in a novel. I like to have two characters. I like to have them really just go at it, because when they start getting upset, they start telling the truth, and that and the truth is not always so pleasant to hear. And sometimes they need like they need that anger, they need to be upset, agitated, confused, or whatever, to really start saying the things that they might not normally say. And I really like to have that tension where they're pushing and pulling, and they have that, you escalate, you de-escalate, you hide from a moment, you push back, you get angry, you get sad, you get embarrassed, and you can get a lot of character and a lot of story can unfold in a very short amount of time if you really get people who are just energetically just kind of clashing. That to me is an absolute thrill, and it doesn't mean that they have to get physical with each other, because they don't. It's really just kind of letting out the stuff where they've just hit that point where they've basically said, I fucking had enough of you, and I'm just gonna let it rip. And then they start saying stuff. Or they're close to it, but they just can't get themselves to be honest. So they're basically sparring with each other to see who's going to let their guard down first, because no one really wants to do it. And then a lot of stuff kind of comes out from there, and then you start seeing all the scars and the dribble, and when you really kind of get that muck really starts coming out. God, I really love that. That is, to me, that's exciting.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially when especially when you're sitting there and you're writing it, and it's that moment where they said something you didn't even know they were gonna come off with.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, whoa, wait a minute, when did the hell did that happen? That
Uh-huh.
deal. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
that's my favorite part of a book, actually, is being able to read that going, no, they didn't,
Uh-huh.
type deal. Um, Speaking of that little shock, um, what have you personally read that when you got to that part, it was like, I cannot believe that that happened. Like, that was the biggest bombshell that had dropped.
Mm-hmm. Have you watched or have you seen or read the books from The Expanse?
No.
Okay, well, if you're a sci-fi person, then you absolutely should. Um, it's a space opera. It's kind of a combination of space opera, military, sci-fi, horror. And there's 6 seasons on the series, but there's 9 books. And there's a very, very specific moment in, I want to say it's book 2, where, because no spoilers, because that's what you said from the beginning, where you think you know what you're watching. So, have you seen Game of Thrones or read
Yes.
Game of Thrones?
Both,
All
yeah.
right,
Yes.
so all right, so there's no spoilers here because it's been out for 20 years. So when Ned Stark loses his head, when you watch it, you're like, that didn't really just happen, did it? Because they cut to black, and then in the next episode, you're like, holy fuck me. And then you realize that the show that you thought you were watching, you're not watching that show.
Right.
You really want, because you think it's about Ned. It's not. It's all about his kids. That's really what the series is about. Well, The Expanse is very similar in the fact that you think you know what you're watching, but then this one thing happens. And once that one thing happens, and I'm reading this book, you realize this is not what I thought I was reading. All this is not the series I thought was here. And you go, holy crap. So, and that happens 2 or 3 times in that series where you think you're watching it or reading it, then a thing happens and you go, holy crap, it's real. Oh, I get it now. And then you're reading it, and then something else happens. You go, wait a second, I thought it was that book. It's actually this book. So, it's pretty amazing, I think.
All right. I have another question in chat. I'm also going to say thank you for the resub, Cash. 13 months. Question from Documancer in chat. Do any lyrics inspire a story out of you?
Do any lyrics inspire a story from me? Are you talking about, just so as a point of clarification, you mean a specific line of within a song that made me think, oh, that's a kickstart for something else, or just kind of like a song or an album in general that kind of has a vibe that I wanted to capture?
Uh,
Specific line.
yeah, Doc says, was there a specific line that you're just like, oh, I could make a story, like, that gave you the seed of a story?
Actually, hang on, I want to get the exact line.
Uh,
I mean, fair. Very
Yeah.
fair.
So, so if you know, I'm a big U2 fan, and they put out a half live, half new album in the late '80s called Rattle and Hum, and there's a song called God Part Two, and the opening line is this: "Don't believe the devil, I don't believe his book, but the truth is not the same without the lies he made up." So I think about that a lot, and the idea of that you know you whether it's the devil himself or someone who's acting, devilishly, is that all you have to do to really fuck with someone is just drop one little nugget in their lap that has a kernel of truth, but is mostly bullshit, and watch it fuck them up real bad. And I kind of use that sort of thematically in a lot of what I write, is this idea that all you have to do is just change one or two little details from something that otherwise seems legit, and you send somebody on a spiral down to nowhere. So I think of that opening verse from God Part Two, which is actually it was actually a quasi sequel from the song God by John Lennon, I think, from when he was with the Beatles.
Yeah, I think it was the last one they did right before he split off. Uh, if you could sit down with anybody of the past and have a conversation with them, who would it be?
Mark Twain.
We have never had anybody answer that question that fast.
That fast, and I don't think it's ever been some like a literary person, like an author from the past. It's always been
Right.
like a family member or someone famous, but like not for their writing. But go ahead, continue. Mark Twain. Why?
Not only was he one of our greatest authors, but he had such a dry sense of humor, and his ability to infuse that dry humor through, I mean, I would not want it personally to have lived, 100 years ago. And to be able to sort of have the look, who knows how he actually was in real life, I don't know, but the way that he comes across as someone who was able to sort of keep his wits about him. I don't know if you know the poem from Rudyard Kipling, If. And he talks about, if you can keep your wits if you can keep your wits about you while those around you are losing theirs, right? Then you can really become a man. And so this idea of that he seemed to be able to really be able to keep his wits about him while he was in the presence of kings and monarchs and stately people dealing with very big crises at that time in the world, and just kind of have this. He was sort of, to me, he was sort of like what George Carlin kind of was, if George Carlin wasn't, I mean, who had a very serious drug problem. If George Carlin didn't have a serious drug problem and lived 100 years ago, that kind of like had brilliance and really knew how to frame up social issues and have humor to it and kind of keep himself in perspective. Mark Twain, I think, I would just, if I had the opportunity, I would love to sit with him and just sort of really love to understand how he managed himself in the midst of, relentless social and political and global chaos.
I always You mentioned dry humor, and like for some reason my brain always goes, "What is wet humor?" But uh, that's not my question. My question is, I don't think we have anything else coming up in chat right now. So my next question will be, uh, what is your fallback punctuation mark when you're starting to get burned out or tired at the end of a session?
My fallback punctuation.
Yeah, like what is that? You overly rely on commas or ellipses or
Probably an M dash.
M dashes.
Yep, I was a journalist for a long time, and they I found them very useful in structural storytelling, and it translated over to my fiction.
Very. All right. If you could be dropped in the middle of any book and you've got to be able to survive it, just know that. But if you were dropped in the middle of any book, which one would it be?
So this is something that I would do by choice.
Well, sort of.
Well, okay. The cat. Okay, I'll set it up a little bit. The capture is not by choice. You're yanked out. Whatever vehicle up to and
Okay.
including a literal truck hits you on the street. However, it may happen, but
Oh,
you are yanked from your life. The only choice and going to be put into another one. But the only choice you have is which book it is, which story.
all right. Let me think about this for a second.
It's like
Let me think about. I want to think about this for a second. If I could be dropped into any book, and I would, you're saying, and I would survive.
you have to survive.
I have to survive. That's an interesting question. What would I want? What would I want? Where would I want to be? I'm just looking at my shelf here, looking for inspiration here. Yes. Where would I want to be dropped into? See, I wouldn't want to be dropped into many of the books that I write because the survival rates are pretty low. Uh,
See, our question used to be if you got dropped in the middle of your own book,
yeah,
doesn't matter which series, would
yeah,
you survive?
I don't think I'd want that. I guess I would say, okay, there was a great comic book series of graphic novels called Fables, which posited, if any kind of fable that you can think, they had their own ecosystems and they had their own battles and wars and magic and mystery. I think I would want to be there.
That seems safe enough.
Oh no, no, trust me, it was definitely not safe. No, safe was not a thing, but it's so unlike how I spend my time. I mean, I tend to write a lot of. I read and I write a lot of dark fiction, and a lot of crime, mystery, thriller, and this has some of that, but there's no sci-fi into it. It's fable, so it's more fantasy, and it's more, you know, anything from Snow White and the Seven Dwarves to, it's classic fables, more modern fables, and it's just that's fused with modern day, and it's just something that I think would be so completely different from what I'm used to, but yet the survivalist and the mystery and the and the um, and the survivalist part of it I can relate to. So yeah, I would say fables.
All right. Well, crazy to think that it's already been an
I
hour
I
has
know.
blasted by. We'll we'll give you your time to. This is your time to plug whatever you want to plug. Whatever events coming up, current works in progress, or what you just finished. Release dates on those. What people have to look forward to. Whether it's seeing you out in the wild or something that they can pick up
All
online.
right. So, well, we spoke about Hardwick, so let's go real quick. So there were 5 books in the series, just for anyone who's paying attention, right? So, Crackling Fire was book 1, and by the way, there's a bonus short story in this one, which with Android, so look out for that. Uh, Fractured Lives was book 2, Hot Ash, which I love. Book 3, Blunt Force Rising, which we talked about, was book 4. And book 5 was Trigger Point, which won the 2024 Black Phoenix Book of the Year. So that was exciting. So you can look for those online. And then what I have coming out soon. So I did a collection this is about 2019 Murder in Montague Falls. There are 3 noir novellas that all take place in the same fictional town of Montague Falls. The protagonists are teenagers, but this is not YA, it's adult fiction. The teenagers all went to the same high school, but not together. And the tales are set in 3 different decades, and they're all bloody murder mystery with some horror. Um, and so you get 3 tales in one book. It's myself and then my 2 writing partners, Sawney Hatton and Patrick Thomas. So it's kind of like a Stephen King style collection, 3 novellas, 1 book. The sequel, Monsters of Montague Falls, is coming out in October. Same 3 authors, again in Montague Falls, except that rather than bloody crime, those first ones are all based loosely inspired by true crime. These are all monster based. So I'm doing mine is vampires. The second one my buddy is writing is more like gargoyles, and the third one has more of like a Lovecraftian tale, even though they're all set kind of in in our America that we know, but in different decades. So that's coming out in October, and again, you'll get 3 novellas in the same book. So that's coming out in a couple of months, and then like I said, I'll be in I'll do Brooklyn Books and Brews in Brooklyn. In September, I will be at Monster Mania in Oaks, Pennsylvania, the weekend before Thanksgiving, and I think that's it for now. I don't think because I just like I said I wrapped up my summer book tour, so I'm gonna be back in the cave. Just I got to write. I'm starting a new book on Monday, which will be very different from anything I've written before. And then my podcast, like I said, Russ's Rock and Roller Coaster will be back on the air. It should be in February or March of 2027, and you can get all episodes for free on YouTube.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. Everyone, go pick up any of the books that have been listed tonight, this 5-book series, and as you said, writing indefinitely, so there will be more to come. And
yep, for sure.
Julie, the outro, if you please.
Also, do not forget to go and look at the website for Russ. It's an amazing website. That's where I pulled most of the stuff tonight.
Oh, yes. The only social link we had, so that is the one you see scrolling on the screen. You cannot click on it. Now try to click on it.
Yep.
Type it in.
You can find me mostly on. You can go to my website. You can find me on Facebook under my name. I'm easy to find. Yep. That's probably the best places to find me.
Alrighty. Everybody, do not forget about the Hold My Pen Promptcast tomorrow night. 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern. Adjust your times accordingly. Otherwise, we will see you next week. Well, no, we will get back to you guys about what's going to happen next week, because technically me, Izzy, and Kesh are supposed to be at Indy next week. So we watch your emails for the newsletter to find out what is going to be happening next week with the show.
You can also follow along in the Discord. If you're in the Discord, you should all be there.
You should all be there. If you're not a part of the newsletter, why the hell not? It's fucking free. So is the Discord. But if you think we're chaotic here, come over there. We're much more chaotic over there. We're less censored. Otherwise, don't add to the population. Don't subtract into the fucking population. If you get your ass arrested, assert dominance. Call me in case you need commissary, because we ain't bailing your ass out on a Friday night. Otherwise, we will see you tomorrow night. Love you guys. Bye.